my energy bills have almost tripled since 2020. If I don't do anything, it will be higher than my rent. And I'm not the only one in this situation. In fact, 6 out of 10 people in Belgium are worried that they won't be able to pay for their bills. That's why I organized a meetup with the FIRE Belgium community where I share my personal situation and my strategy to cut my energy bills this winter. I speak about how my energy bills have almost tripled in 2 years, what we are doing to reduce our energy consumption, and how we're planning to cut our bills by 300 to 500 euros per month with simple and low-cost measures. Let's go. I wanted to just simply share my own personal experience of how I am cutting my energy bills this winter. What I have been doing so far and what I'm hoping it will achieve in winter. So I'll share mostly my personal experience and a few pointers to things that I'm not doing, but that might be interesting for you. And I think basically, I'll just go for it. I think this is important because as part of financial independence, obviously we want to reduce living expenses so that our passive income can cover all of that. And that's basically the way we go towards financial independence. And that's how we make financial independence last forever. And so I'm in that phase where I need to control my living expenses because I have a certain amount of income that I'm allowing myself to take from my investment portfolio every month, and I live from that. And so controlling expenses is important. And in this case, energy expenses, which until a year ago, I didn't care at all about, they're becoming important. And since I would say now 2-3 months with my wife, we're paying very much attention to our consumption. And we are thinking about what we can do to reduce that. And as you will see, we have challenges because we rent. I guess that's one way of looking at challenges. But then we also are, quite we're quite keen on this financial independence thing, so we're willing to explore different options. So that's what I'm hoping to share. So winter is coming, and that's good news and bad news. No, actually, it's both bad news. Winter's coming, it's bad news. And the other bad news is that it hasn't happened yet. I mean, the weather is still quite good. That's good news for most people. But for the presentation here, I was hoping that, we would have had some low temperatures and I could have checked if my strategy works for very low temperatures, because at the moment, I don't know if I can do what I'm planning to do for this winter. We'll see. But winter is coming, so we need to get prepared no matter what. So reducing energy bills, there's different ways of doing that. We've just discussed with Jan on how to reduce the tariff that you're being charged. And he also presented on the day and night tariff, which is the case for my household. We have a day and night tariff. Then there's government support, which you've hopefully seen in the news, but I have a couple of slides to quickly summarize that for those who haven't seen it. And then there's actually reducing your personal consumption, which is what I am focusing on in this presentation. And that's what I'm hoping to share mostly with you. Now, government support, this is what was in the newspaper last week. I think there might be new initiatives coming as well, but basically you can get money from the government or reduction in your bills for different things. There's one that is for gas and one for electricity. So those specific numbers are deducted by the supplier per month on everybody's bills, I believe. And then if for households that are making above a certain income, I think for couples earning above 120,000 euros a year, so like fairly large income, this is a taxable reduction that they get. So it's a bit less interesting, but obviously it doesn't matter so much for people with very high income, unless they have, this sort of numbers wouldn't change much. But most people will get around 200 euros if you have both gas and electricity, and 60 euros if you have electricity heating, which is my case. And then there's a 100 euro bonus that's given one time, which has been deducted from electricity bill between April and July. And that's something that you can check on your electricity bills. You can see if there's been a deduction of 100 euro at some point. One of the months will be 100 euro lower than most of the months. And if not, then you can contact the SPF Economy before the 15th of November. So that's just a few days from today. Or contact them if you don't see it, but it should be there. So most of us have received it already. And then there's a €300 bonus for fuel, oil, and propane. So that's for people who are not heating with gas or electricity. They are providing support there. And then same for pellets. There's something that is planned. I don't think it's been done yet. And so for that, the idea is that you keep your invoices on both for fuel oil, propane, and pellet. Keep your invoices, and the process is already available. You can do that online for fuel oil and propane. But pellets, I haven't seen how to do that. And then there's a social tariff that Jan also mentioned, which basically provides electricity at a cheaper rate, about a third to 2/3 cheaper. I'm not sure exactly. I think I've seen something like 27 cents per kilowatt hours, where the traditional average price now is around 69 cents. So that would be like a full 2/3 cheaper. But again, that is something that's, they set that tariff on a regular basis, and so it changes. So this ratio will also change, obviously, because the actual price changes. And this is for low income households, with either integration income, grandpa disability support, or also those who are eligible or are in the program of intervention majorée. I won't pronounce the one in Dutch, but basically it's lower healthcare. Like that's the program to provide further financial support for healthcare. So that's like higher healthcare reimbursement. So if you are in one of those categories, then you will automatically get such social tariff. Now, let's talk about my personal situation, because that's what I will be sharing. The household configuration. So we are 2 adults and we have 2 boys, and we actually are most of the time at home. We don't have offices. We don't really work much. I mean, I do most of the stuff for FIRE Belgium, but that's not taking very much time. And so I spend a lot of time at home. And we have a small boy that goes to school, and the other one that stays with us at home. So we're mostly at home, and it's a 2-bedroom apartment with neighbors on all sides. It's energy efficiency is PAB C, and I went to check the certificate from 2012, so that was 10 years ago. And it's mostly still valid because the installation hasn't changed. I think heating has changed a bit, but basically what I noted there was that the heating system for both just indoor heating and hot water heating is just not good quality. And I know that some of the heaters have been upgraded by the owner, but not all. So generally, I have a bad heating system where I live. And the estimate is the 194 kilowatt hours per square meters per year. This is basically what puts it in the category C. We don't have any gas, and we have electric heating in all rooms. And in the main living room, we have electric heating with storage heating, which means that it heats at night when the electricity tariffs are lower, and then releases the energy throughout, right? So it's meant to be more cost effective. It also means it's heating at night. So I'm not really sure how much more cost efficient this is compared to some other type of heating, but it's supposed to be more cost effective. And then we have an electric water heater, actually 2. And the main one for the shower is also set up to heat up only at night. No TV. We don't have a big fridge. We actually have a small fridge. We have fairly small appliances, so low energy consumption. No TV box, no TV screen, none of these things. Say a small household, humble, but happy. And then there's actually 5 ways of monitoring energy consumption. And we're going to see here what the different levels are. It's 5 ways, 5 levels, basically. So we have the total annual consumption, which would be the bill that you get from your energy provider. And typically this is done with an annual energy meter check. So we go and see what's the consumption, what's the rating compared to the previous year, and the difference is your consumption. And the bill that you get is usually an estimate of what's expected in terms of cost based on previous year's consumptions. 2 to 3 years, I think, of consumption is what is then provided to the electricity distribution company that sends you the invoices. And the reason why they are giving you those upfront payments is because the electricity price per kilowatt hour is going up, and they have an estimate of your consumption from the past 2-3 years. Now, if you've moved into a new place, then they will use the consumption of the previous tenants, right? So it's always just an estimate. And I think for most people, who are now paying attention to the bill, they're reducing their energy consumption. So hopefully, whatever the provider is charging or is asking to charge as a down payment every month is higher than what will actually be the final bill. So that's the hope. But yeah, so they will request that you change that monthly payment every quarter, I think, as Jan was saying, and that's what I've experienced as well. And you can choose to accept or say no, and then you can also change that one on your own, but you have to provide justification typically. For example, a picture of your meter showing that you're actually contributing or controlling your electric consumption. The total energy consumption is one way of basically measuring your energy consumption, and it's basically you don't get very many data points. You have one per year. It's very little. You can easily improve that by taking snapshots of your meter and tracking how much you're consuming on a regular basis. So you could take a snapshot every month. So you could take a snapshot every week, every year. Sorry, every day. You really can go and take the data on yourself at your meter whenever you want. And me and my wife were doing this about once a week or every 2 weeks for the past few months.
So if you have a digital meter, Sebastian, you can actually log in.
No. Oh yeah, if you have a digital meter, you can log in. Okay, that's great. I have analog meters.
I know at Fluvius, so I'm not sure about the other distributors, but at Fluvius, you can log in and you can actually see quarter per quarter, every single day, what your consumption is.
That's amazing. Yeah. So that gives you much more detailed understanding then of the consumption and how it's changing compared to previous years. So that's, I mean, especially right now, it's quite important. So I don't have that. I only see, what I receive from the supplier and their estimate. So they've told me, okay, based on your previous year's consumption, this is what we are estimating you will be using this year, and that's clearly above what I'm actually consuming, and I can see that. And so yeah, that's the second level. Then another level is looking at the appliances that you have and figuring out like how much each appliance might be using based on the power rating of the appliance and then how long they're running for. Now, this is not a perfect way of doing this because appliances don't always run at full capacity. You can't measure exactly, how much a dishwasher takes because the dishwasher has a bunch of different cycles and it changes a bunch of things. And so it's complicated. But this is one way for you to have a look at what basically makes up your energy consumption. It's not very accurate. A more accurate way of doing that would be to go and measure locally with the power meter. There's someone in the community who actually wrote a really nice post on the Facebook group about this, Bruno. I will link it. I think when I share the replay, I will link that post as well so people can see. But basically, there's a way of doing this if you dedicate it enough, and you can measure every single appliance in your entire house and make some measurements to have a pretty much more detailed breakdown of energy consumption, and then from there make decisions on how to change your usage of the appliance, but also whether to change or not the appliance compared to what's available in the market, and do a bunch of technical calculation comparing energy consumption versus the price of the new equipment and whether that gives you a payback that seems interesting or not. And so this is it's quite technical. This requires decent knowledge and abilities in managing Excel and doing some kind of financial forecasts. But if you have the ability to do that, that's how you get very accurate and probably the most accurate way of doing this. And then there's a fifth option that I've discovered, that's smart meters, but not the regular smart meter or digital meter that we discussed earlier, but a meter which has a much higher frequency of measurement and which you can train or you can provide data to so that it identifies which appliances and which type of appliances are on or off during the day. So this is a much more expensive meter. It's not the €80 meter that we talked about earlier. This will be several hundreds of euros. And then you have to do some training to it. And I don't know what the suppliers are, but I know this exists because of previous projects I did in my career before. So that's also an option. Now, for me, I go low cost. So for me, it's meter snapshots, and I'm making observations based on that, depending on what I am actually implementing in terms of measures, right? So with my wife, we've taken steps to change our energy consumption, mostly electricity because we don't have gas. And then we simply check the meters to see if it made a difference compared to previous months or previous weeks. So that's what we're going to discuss here. So average consumption, this is for my own house, right? So this is data. I have annual data for about 2 years. And so on average, I'm consuming 21 kilowatt hour per day. That's what I have consumed in the past 2 years. And that's 8 kilowatt hours of that is during the day, and then 13 kilowatt hours is during night and weekends on average, right? Now, I also have measurements for winter because I've measured 2 winters where I have Jan and Feb 2021 and January, February 2022. And so I have a good estimate of how much I was consuming in those months 1 and 2 years ago. And it's a bit scary because it's double. So 45 kilowatt hours per day on average in winter. And you can see the breakdown between day and night. That's not too important, but really 45 kilowatt hours a day, that's a lot. So I've put that into these graphs here. And so average for 2021, about 21 kilowatt hours a day. So that's 7,665 kilowatt hours per year. Now, an average household, I think in Belgium consumes about 3,500 to 4,000. So we're at double that, but that's because we have electric heating, right? And we don't have gas. So we would have, when households would have certain amount of consumption in gas, we don't have any. And in winter, that goes up massively. So obviously heating is a massive contributor of our consumption in my house. And then I had a look at energy prices. So in the first table here, I'm comparing my household versus a standard Belgian household as per, I think, the definition of the Craig. And so, as you can see, a double electricity consumption, but no gas consumption. And then the electricity price change over time, right? And gas price change over time in the past, basically 2 years. I went and I looked at October prices for 2020, 2021, and then last October, just now 2022. And so we can see the prices here. Electricity went from 0.25 to 0.35 to now 0.69. So it's more than doubled compared to 2 years ago. And gas has quadrupled in just those 2 years. And so I've also made then an estimate of my bills, how they evolved over those 3 years. And we see that 2 years ago, I would have paid 1,900 euros for the whole year in bills. So it's quite high. And it's higher than the standard Belgian household because gas was very cheap. So heating with gas was ideal 2 years ago. Today, that's not as clear. And then if last year that already went up, so from 2020 to 2021, it went up. It doubled for the standard average Belgian household because electricity went up more than, gas went up more than electricity, right? So gas went up almost 3 times and electricity went up by, 40% or so. So we were less impacted than most households last year, and it's gone even higher than that this year. Well, it's double on both sides now. So electricity doubled and gas doubled in the past year. And so a bill that was last year 2,000 euros, 1,500, 2,000 euros, today would go to 5,000 to 6,000 euros, right? And so today gas is very expensive, and so the standard Belgian household bill is very high and higher than ours. So in a way, we're kind of lucky we're on all electricity, but electricity is not very efficient for heating. So anyway, and then what I did, I thought I put some animations here that don't show. What I did then is I've run a few tests. And so I have the average for 2021. I have the average for 2 winters. And then in October, that's when we started actually, was it in October? Yeah, October, we have more better data. I measured for a week or 2 what would be like a standard baseline. So when we decided to start saving energy, that was in September, and we cut on a bunch of things. So that wasn't representative of a regular week or a regular consumption. So in October, early October, we decided to just let go and consume normally. And so this is what you see here. And so on the regular October week or month or whatever, we consume about 9.5 kilowatt hours per day. So that's a lot less than the average, and it's a lot less the winter, obviously, because we haven't used the heating yet, right? And what I wanted to see is like, what does that how does that translate in monetary terms? And you see that the average for 2021, average daily consumption is usually around 14, 15 euros. In winter, it goes up to 30 euro per day. But when I'm not using heating, we're at 6 to 7 euros a day, right? And if you then move that into monthly bills, that's 400 for the average that I've had in the past 2 years. It goes up to 1,000, almost to 1,000. So 950 per month in winter, and 200 if I don't use heating. So yes, so heating is a very big part of my bill. It's also it's 25 euros per day, or not 850 here, but 750 euro per month, right? In winter. So this is basically it's the monetary value of using heating today, right? For a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids in an apartment. And I think it's equivalent for most people. Like most people will have a bill of heating about between 500 and 1,000 euros at least, I'm certain, in winter, right? This is winter, obviously, because I'm comparing winter with a normal October where I didn't use heating. And that also means that there's a huge opportunity for savings, right? If something is expensive and all of a sudden it takes a massive space in your budget, that's what you should be focusing on. And so that's what we're doing with my wife. We've considered tech improvements. So I think in August and September, I was considering what can we upgrade in the house to improve this. Obviously, there should have been insulation, better windows and all that. But because we're tenants and our landlords will not do that, and we are in a massive building, insulation, forget it, windows will not be changed. I mean, none of that will work. So we basically have very limited choices here. We have added insulation behind all electric heaters so that the heat doesn't go into the walls but stay in more. We haven't used heating yet, so we haven't benefited from this, but it's cheap and it's easy to do. Anyone can do, and you can just go get a very thin sheet of heat of insulation from any of these shops. They're running out of these materials, so get it fast before winter comes. You can weatherproof your doors and windows. So we seal vents. We have vents that are automatically in place in those windows, and there's always leak. Even when the vent is turned off, it's always leaking. We've sealed that, and we're ventilating manually when we think is right, which is once a day when it's not too cold outside. We've added silicone in tiny, so there were places around our windows, around the balcony, where there was just air coming in, which was not meant to be. It's because of the moving parts. So we've sealed that, and we've added better weatherproofing on the Velux. So that's the thing where you open and close the Velux. Basically, you look at all the places where you might have leaks of air, and if it's not meant to happen, then you fix it. And these are often very cheap things to do, and they will translate into several tens, if not hundreds of euros over the winter, right? So it's worth doing. And then we're considering thicker curtains. That's also a way of basically preventing heat from leaking through the windows, especially at night. So that's something that we're considering. We haven't decided yet. But the main thing that we're focusing on is usage and behavior improvements. So we are paying attention to all the lights that we have in the house, and we turn them off almost all the time. So we only use them if absolutely necessary, and whenever we leave the room, we turn it off. We keep heaters off so far, unless really necessary. For example, in the bathroom when the kids are taking a bath. We actually identified that we have the main heater in the living room that's kind of dormant. It's always on. It's always connected. Even when we can't turn it off manually. I don't think it's meant to be turned off because electricity was supposed to be cheap, but basically it can't be turned off manually. And there's always the little display screen that's there, and there's some consumption. We don't know what level of consumption this is. So we've decided that we would turn off the fuse for that whenever we don't use it. And it turns out it's connected to the same electricity fuse as lighting. So whenever we don't use the lights, we turn off that thing. It turns off also the dormant heater. It prevents us from using lights in some places when we would have liked. It happens. But basically we use less light when light is just switched off in the whole house. We don't do that very often, but certainly at night I just turn off everything, and this one goes to sleep as well. It just stops consuming electricity. And we disconnect. Yeah, I don't think I've listed this here, but we disconnect everything that is not currently charging. So if we have a phone charger, we disconnect the charger, not just the phone. And we do that as soon as the phone is charged. Same with laptops and other things. We've reduced the number of baths for kids. They used to take bath very regularly. They love it. Now it's a bit less of them. And then reduce shower time and number of showers for both me and my wife. So before I used to take just long showers. I don't care. I didn't care, honestly. Now I'm conscious. So I just turn it on, wash, and turn it off. And that's it. I'm out. And shower a bit less. Yes, clothing, extra layer, and merino wool underwear. So that's our biggest purchase of the past month. We've bought merino wool underwear for everyone in the house. I'm wearing it right now. It's this, and it's super comfortable. It's highly it's the best way of keeping your body warm, basically, without being uncomfortable. It doesn't itch. It's amazing. I just recommend it to everyone. I think everybody should have a couple of full underwear, merino wool. Pants and everything. No, you wear it at night, you wear it during the day. It's amazing. And then an extra layer. You just all of this is quite common sense, but what I'm getting at is it's quite common sense to reduce your heating bill if you just apply them all on top of each other. And then something that might not be common sense, since not everybody is doing that, is using a hot water bottle. So when you're heating your house, what you're doing is you're heating the whole space and using a system that's not very efficient, which is electric heating. And it heats the whole space, and you're not using all the space. There's a bunch of air that you're not actually touching. When you use a hot water bottle, what you do is you concentrate heat in the place that you need, which is your body. Hot water bottle, you can sit on your lap. It can be in your bed somewhere. You can have it there in advance. It's amazing. Like, I'm using this. I've used it last winter too, because we came back from travel and the heater takes time to set up. So that's when I got it. But I know that this winter I'm going to use it a lot. And I did a bit of math to see if it was worth it financially to heat up the water and do that. And it is, because to warm up one hot water bottle is less than 0.5 kilowatt hour, 0.05 kilowatt hour, which is less than 4 cents per bottle. And if that means, say, you basically, for the price, when I'm heating for 25 euro per day, I could finance hundreds and hundreds of hot water bottles and spend the same, right? So, and you don't need hundreds, you need just a couple of days, a couple per day, and you're fine, right? They last a long time. They keep you warm a long time. They're amazing. They're super comfortable. Especially if you don't like going to bed when it's cold and you kind of feel cold at bed. That's amazing. I can't recommend it enough. I think everybody needs one. You should be using them. It would save a lot of energy. I think it could solve a lot of the energy crisis if everyone in Europe would have one and use it. And we're testing things like washing dishes with cold water. Obviously, we're not always in agreement with my wife, right? So I have some ideas to say, hey, we could do this. She doesn't like this one so much, but I said, I'll wash it. If things are still greasy, we go back to hot water, no problem. And then there's usage and some other behavior improvements. We do more games with the kids indoors. This is more to basically get warm, hide and seek or tag, and it's easy with the kids that they're just almost 2 and 4 years old, so it's a lot of fun. We do more exercise, me and my wife, but the kids also join us, so it's quite fun. Considering going to bed earlier so that we turn off everything earlier. It's just another idea. And then there's a bunch of other ideas, which are some of them quite extreme, but there are options. So I'm putting them there because it might work for some of you. Moving abroad. There's places where you can go that this problem doesn't exist, so you don't actually need so much heating. And there's people in the community who are abroad and they are doing this because they have the option to move. Downsizing. Smaller place, proper installation works, so we can't do that, but many of you can probably. Renewable energy, we've mentioned that with Jan earlier. Heat pump, more sport and shower there until they increase the price of the shower. Work away from home if you can, and then detailed energy audits using power meter and all of that, which we discussed earlier. So these are some ideas that you can also implement. Now, these are some results of what we have seen. So we've done 1 week, like we have a period of October that's normal and a period of October where we're paying attention to everything. And we've made a difference, a small difference here, right? We went from yeah, 6.6 euro per day to 4.5. So that's 2 euro per day over a month. Yeah, it's 60 euros. So that's quite interesting. If 60 euros makes a difference, then, you know, here we've basically done almost everything that we wanted and see. So that's the lowest we can go basically. And it's not cold yet, right? But that's the lowest we can go, and we know it. Right. So you can also do that. This is the spreadsheet I used. And you know, these are pictures of the power meters. And basically what I do is I take pictures like that on a regular basis. I take note here, the date of measurements, the day meter, and then the night meter. They both have kilowatt hours. You can see those on the analog meter here. And then I just do a simple formula here, number of days in the periods, but also then total consumption in each. And I make a calculation to see what's the average daily consumption in that period. And we can see here, you know, the winter periods. We have some other days. There's the time we were gone for, I think, 3 days, and we can see that we have ongoing electricity consumption even when we're gone. So that's 0.6 here. As you can see the latest data from us. No, and there's 1 week where we had guests in the house, so we went up to 10 per day. And then you can do some. And actually, I can give that to you. I can give that to you in the chat, and I will put the link as well for people who watch the replay. If you want to use the template that I've prepared, it's there. You just make a copy and you can use it. I'm gonna go back to the presentation and share my screen. Let's go. Right, so that's something you can do. And then, yeah, this doesn't include gas. So, you know, you would have to do that yourself for gas. But it's the formulas and everything I use in the comments and everything that I have there, including costs. So I have this, we can't see it on this snapshot, but basically it's a cost calculating thing as well. So you can use that. Now, the challenge is really to minimize heating. That's the heating you need. So I think there's ways to do that in a simple and low cost way. As with everything I do, investing also, I like it simple and low cost. Energy savings, I like it simple and low cost. So the 2 steps are get warm, and the second, and then stay warm. So get warm, as I said, it's fun to move. It's good to move. We all have a need for that. It's not always something we want to do, but now it has double benefits: health benefits and monetary benefits. But otherwise, the hot water bottle. And if you don't want that, then you can still go for things like electric blankets. We don't like those too much. The water bottle is super effective, but these are good options. They're both comfortable. The electric heating blanket is very comfortable because you just switch it on, it warms. You don't have to keep it on all the time either. You just warm up a bit and then it stays warm because it's a blanket. And then you stay warm. You dress up, for example, with the merino wool, but just warm jumpers, lots of layers. You do the onion strategy, lots of layers, and the heat gets trapped in between the layers in the air. And you stay warm with the hot water bottle too, because it stays warm a long time. The one I used last night was warm in the morning. Amazing. Just such a good night I had. And you know, good blankets. And I think that's the strategy. Because there's only so much we can do technically. There's only so much we can do from a price perspective. This is where we can do the biggest difference, and it has zero investment costs. It's huge return on investment, no matter what you buy on this thing to improve, right? Whether it's a bigger blanket, a bunch of underwear that's a really warm, hot water bottle. Now you don't have to go with no heating at all, right? Put some heating, just lower some degrees. It's really important. That's the biggest difference. That's the biggest difference you can make with very little investment, right? So that's kind of what we are going for. And I was wondering, as I mentioned at the very beginning, if people were interested in joining an energy saving challenge. So the goal here would be simply to help each other reduce our energy consumption, whatever ways there are, whether it's technical or just the behaviors or this low cost and simple way I've just mentioned. And if that's interesting, then we do something like a little community challenge. It's just a way of working together, right? Share resources, share tips and strategies, accountability. And the idea would be to have a Zoom call on a regular basis, and people can just exchange and ask questions to each other. And then we would probably include the replays of these presentations in some kind of shared drive, and for sure it would go into the some shared resources so people can watch this later. And we build something that everyone can use basically, and we support each other. And maybe a group chat or whatever, I don't know exactly. The goal would be saving hundreds of euros each month. That's the goal. For most of us, for those who have a lot of solar panels, maybe not needed. But for most of us, this is something that can make a big difference in our personal finances. So this is the end of my presentation. If you're interested in joining the energy saving challenge, then be sure to join the FIRE Belgium Facebook group. There we talk about saving, but also how to take control of our finances and how to start investing for financial independence. I'll hope to see you there. Cheers.